It's so easy to think that globalized trade, massive supply chain struggles, and international tariffs are just these completely modern inventions. We tend to assume that a deeply interconnected global economy is strictly a product of the 20th century. But as we dig into the history of commerce in today's explainer, we're going to find something absolutely fascinating. The empires of antiquity, they were actually the original architects of global trade. The routes they mapped and the strategies they pioneered laid the exact blueprint that we still use today. So let's dive right in and explore this incredible history of maritime empires, the formation of early trading blocks, and the ancient trade routes that built and honestly sometimes completely destroyed entire civilizations. To get started, I want you to think about this quote from the 17th century German economic thinker Johann Joachim Bicher. He wrote, "It is always better to sell goods to others than to buy goods from others, for the former brings a certain advantage and the latter inevitable damage." Now, that perfectly captures the high-stakes economic reality of the ancient world. Even though Bicher wrote this back in the 1600s, this deeply protectionist, mercantilist mindset was understood by ancient empires millennia ago. They absolutely knew that wealth meant power. And to get that wealth, well, you had to control the flow of goods and leverage your geographic position to form really tight-knit trading blocks. And to truly grasp the immense wealth of the ancient world, you just have to look at the jaw-dropping array of exotic luxury goods that fueled these early global supply chains. I mean, we're talking about incredibly high-demand items traversing thousands of miles. Chinese silk, for example, was so highly prized in the Roman Empire that elite citizens essentially drained the Roman economy just to buy it. They treated it very much like an ultra-exclusive modern status symbol. You also had Indian spices like pepper and cinnamon, exotic incense from the Nabateans, and that highly sought-after purple-dyed cloth of the Carthaginians, which they actually extracted from Murex shellfish. These definitely weren't just nice things to have on a shelf. They were the literal economic engines that dictated foreign policy. Masters of the seas, controlling the geography of wealth. See, if you wanted to profit off all those luxury goods, you didn't actually have to make them yourself. You just had to control the water they sailed on. And two vastly different strategies emerged to rule the waves. Take the Srivijaya Empire, a maritime powerhouse in Southeast Asia that flourished starting in the 7th century. They controlled the crucial Strait of Malacca, but not through rigid boundaries. Instead, they used a mandala system. This was essentially an ancient informal trading bloc, a flexible network of decentralized alliances that brought them immense wealth by ensuring safe passage and acting as vital intermediaries. Now contrast that with the Carthaginian Empire. They maintained a stranglehold on their shipping routes through a ruthless state-sanctioned naval monopoly. If Carthage found a competing foreign ship in waters they consider their own, they simply sank it on sight. Two entirely different strategies, but both incredibly lucrative. And the wealth generated by these maritime empires was just visually striking. Just look at the sheer scale of the Aksumite obelisk. The Aksum Empire managed trade between India and the Mediterranean, dealing in ivory, gold, emeralds, and silk. By the 1st century CE, they had flourished to such a degree that they built a powerful navy just to heavily patrol the Red Sea. This towering, beautiful monument is a direct architectural result of the astronomical wealth generated by simply standing guard over a vital shipping lane. But being a geographic gatekeeper is incredibly dangerous. Fast forward to the year 1025 CE. The powerful Chola ruler, Rajendra Chola I from South India, launched a devastating and completely unexpected naval expedition against Srivijaya. The attack targeted their key ports and brutally disrupted that once impenetrable trade network. It's this stunning historical reminder that geographic monopolies are actually incredibly fragile. If you build your entire empire on controlling a single choke point, you're basically painting a massive target on your back for anyone who wants a piece of the pie. Which brings us to our next section, the ultimate middleman. Leveraging position for profit. So, while some empires relied heavily on guarding the maritime gates, others realized they could build incredible wealth simply by standing right in the middle of a land route. They forced the creation of interconnected trading blocks by acting as the ultimate ancient middlemen. Take the Kushan Empire. They controlled the Khyber Pass, this natural mountain corridor linking the Indian subcontinent with Central Asia. This prime real estate allowed them to tax goods flowing between Rome, Parthia, and Han China. They even set up ancient roadside inns called caravanserais, creating these thriving microeconomies just to support and tax the traveling merchants. The Nabateans dominated the incense route, and Srivijaya controlled those key straits. They essentially built massive empire-funding toll booths right on top of the world's most critical supply lines. And then you have the Phoenicians, who essentially acted like the international haulage trucks of antiquity.
Instead of just taxing a single point, they physically moved the goods across the Mediterranean. And they were absolute masters of arbitrage. They would take a commodity with a relatively low value to them, like oil or pottery, and exchange it with other cultures for highly coveted items, like silver or tin. They were trading things the local producers didn't value much, but which the clever Phoenicians knew could fetch enormous premium prices elsewhere in their vast network. Pretty brilliant business move, right?
But relying purely on a geographic advantage can backfire spectacularly. Consider the Nabateans. For a long time, they achieved a near-total monopoly transporting precious incense through the harsh desert. They were pretty much untouchable. But then a massive technological shift happened. The Egyptians and Romans figured out how to use the seasonal monsoon winds to navigate the Red Sea directly. Almost overnight, ships loaded with incense started bypassing the Nabatean land routes entirely. Much like modern supply chain disruptions that render entire industries obsolete, the Nabatean land trade just collapsed. The economic devastation was so severe that they literally had to resort to sea piracy to survive, desperately attacking the very Egyptian ships that were bypassing them. Next up, tariffs and trade wars, the protectionists. This all raises a really fascinating question for us to ponder. When exactly did governments first start blocking imports to protect their own domestic jobs and industries? Well, while the precise origin is lost to the mists of history, there's this great joke among officials at the World Trade Organization in Geneva today. It goes, "On the seventh day, God created a GATT waiver." GATT stands for the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and the waiver refers to a special exemption that allows a country to legally dodge free trade rules. It's a funny, insider way of highlighting just how ancient and deeply ingrained the concept of dodging free trade truly is in human society. We have literally always tried to protect our own markets. Tracing the deep roots of protectionism reveals a very familiar pattern. Back in 992 AD, the Byzantine Empire reached a trade pact with Venice, granting Venetian goods lower tariffs than other foreign merchandise. This was effectively an ancient NAFTA, a foundational trading bloc designed to lock out competitors. In 1361, England enacted its first corn laws to bar grain exports and keep their own domestic grain cheap. You can trace this direct line all the way to modern trade spats, like the US and Japan fighting over semiconductors in 1987 and luxury cars in 1995. Actually, scratch that. The tactics haven't changed over the centuries at all, only the goods have. Which leads us right into our final section, the cost of monopoly. Empires collide. Because protecting domestic industries inevitably leads to massive geopolitical friction. Just look at the extreme lengths empires went to in order to maintain their monopolies. The Byzantine Empire fiercely protected its royal purple silk industry by organizing strict craftsman guilds and absolutely refusing to buy goods from non-members. Meanwhile, Sassanid Persia held the main trade routes connecting east and west, and they acted as a suffocating middleman, dramatically restricting Roman trade. To survive this stranglehold, the Eastern Roman Empire was forced to funnel massive investments into alternative northern Red Sea ports like Clysma and Isla just to bypass the Sassanids altogether. The geopolitical stakes over these ancient trade routes were so incredibly high that they triggered devastating conflicts. In southern Arabia, the kingdoms of Aksum and Himyar engaged in brutal combat over dominance of the Red Sea shipping lanes. But zooming out, this was really the climax of ancient economic warfare. It was a massive proxy war backed by Eastern Rome on one side and Sassanid Persia on the other. They were spilling blood just to secure a safe path to Eastern markets and to remove foreign influence from their supply chains. So, as we watch modern superpowers battle over microchip manufacturing, enact tariffs on imported cars, and aggressively patrol modern shipping lanes, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are we simply repeating the epic, ancient blueprint of global trade? And when you get right down to it, who truly controls the world today? The people who produce the goods or the middlemen who control the routes? It's a fascinating history, and I hope it changes the way you look at our modern economy. Thank you so much for exploring the deep history of commerce with me today.